So we collectively have come to just talk about our TLC and what we've been doing in that this year, and our focus was to look at closing the gap attainment-wise with for Pupil Premium students. So we started off in our initial meeting looking at a document which was produced by the Sutton Trust, now the Education Endowment something or other Foundation, which have done quite a bit of research in different schools and establishments on cost effectiveness versus impact for Pupil Premium students. And some of the findings were quite interesting, really. Some of them we can sort of go, yes, I understand that. And others, I kind of wondered about. And we wondered about what kind of sample size they had used to produce this data and what the background evidence was. And although that is gone into some detail in the document, it's not always entirely clear. So it posed us the question, really, was if that's the cost versus impact across their sample, what is it like at FCC? How are we getting the best for our Pupil Premium students? What's got the most impact given costs? And obviously that has become more important in our latest budgetary constraints, and we need to think about that for the future. What we did as TLC then was decide within the members what everybody would like to look at in their practice or across their department that might have an impact on Pupil Premium students, and that's what we've come to report back to you today. So we're just each going to talk about our own little bit that we looked into and what successes or otherwise we have had. So, Rachel, I'll hand over to you.
Was this on? Okay, so from a year perspective, I'm with 51 Pupil Premium students in my year group, so a fair percentage of the year group. I had the privilege really of spending some money, which was quite nice because we talked about the low cost versus the high cost. And I was lucky enough to have two opportunities this year, both the Skill Force intervention just before Christmas, leading up to Christmas for 6 weeks, and then again the Puzzle Day, which both Year 8 and Year 7 Pupil Premium students were able to take part in. And both, cost a fair bit of money and came out of the Pupil Premium budget. So how did it go? How did it work? 12 Pupil Premium students selected for Skill Force. This is where facilitators came in, worked over in the LSU on a Friday for 6 Fridays running, building up to Christmas. It took them off of timetable for a whole day. I watched them, as did some other staff and parents, present back at the end and visibly see, their pride and confidence as they presented back their little projects to the staff watching, and particularly the parents. Great to see certain parents in school that we wouldn't always see as well coming to see their youngsters. The data's quite soft on this in terms of impact. Margaret's observations from the students that were left behind in the lessons is actually really interesting, particularly with the maths group that Margaret had. Lots of these 12 came from that maths group. And her observations with them really, with their improved resilience to work on extended tasks, improved focus, better listening skills, respectful of each other's ideas, taking responsibility. So actually the group we left behind significantly benefited as well from the time that the Pupil Premium students spent in Skillforce. I wholeheartedly think it worked and moved their confidence and resilience on during that first term of Year 8. The second big thing that we did was I took 60 students, so I bumped up my 51. We were allowed 60 in total, probably too many in the end, but let them all have a go at the Puzzle Day, which was really interesting, problem solving, teamwork, group work, resilience, challenge, and I surveyed half of that group, 31 before and 31 after, and asked them these sorts of questions. And this was the impact really. Were they happy to work in a group? 40% felt, so there's little red arrows on the end there, 40% felt that had increased. Happy to work on my own, 40% felt that had increased. Better at asking questions, particularly better at trying different strategies to solve problems. So there is some data there. The survey did suggest that there was some improvement, and I continue to monitor how they're doing and weigh that up against everything they do in terms of, you know, improved attitude to learning if that's their thing they need to work on, or improved progress across year 8 and into year 9 if they're, you know, if that's something that needed to be targeted. So that was my high-end, high-cost, but I think significant impact as well with those students. I think if you spoke to any one of them that took part in either of those 2 days, they would have positive recollections of the day or of the whole series of days and as to how it went. Any questions on that for those that aren't in the group? Because we've talked about this quite a lot as a group. Anybody that wants to know a bit more about the year 8?
I think it's perhaps worth noting that we did feel at the end, didn't we, that the puzzle day in particular, our staff could have delivered that as well as the outside facilitator.
Yeah, thank you, Marion. I've written that down actually to talk about, and if nothing else, we took that from it, that with a bit of an investment in the right materials, you know, a really good day that we could facilitate in the future. And I think we must invest in some of that, not all of it, but just in some of those things for, you know, lunchtime provision after school, you know, the before and after school provision, particularly that some of our pupil premium students tend to access in the mornings and in the evening. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else go?
Some nice photographs here that, that we took it together, just I think shows the concentration and the group work and the sort of rah-rah spirit that was going on. They were all cheering one another on, weren't they? I looked at a very low-cost idea, which was just trying to focus in the class at live marking with my, again, my Year 8 group where I've got a number of pupil premium students. And all I did was turn the marking to positive discrimination, really, for my pupil premium students, and looked at particularly being on it with them in the lesson to see what impact that had. So Suzanne Kane is often in there with me, and she was taking a number and working with them, loads of green pen going on in the lesson. They were getting verbal feedback as often as they could. And just trying to say, if you make an effort, I will notice that, you will get praise. But the effort has to be to do with learning and your maths and concentrating on that. The outcomes were interesting because they were quite individualised. Some students really liked it, and it paid dividends with some of the souls, you know, who just obviously don't have an awful lot of attention normally in my lessons, apparently, and saw a difference in that. And it did increase their confidence, it increased their work rate, increased their engagement, and definitely was a payoff for them. There were 1 or 2 who viewed it less positively and felt it was an intrusion and why me and all the rest of it, and you can kind of see how I just need to continue with that and turn that round to the norm for them rather than them feeling pressure. And I think, to be honest, even since we put this together, that has begun to happen. There is a bit of a, you know, a turnaround in some of those boys in particular who felt a bit uncomfortable at being targeted for marking all the time. I didn't mention it to them. They weren't, you know, told that this was going to be happen. So it was very covert in that way. But it was interesting the way the behaviours changed despite not really having been told that was what happened. So very low cost, mixed impact, I would say, but overall positive. Okay.
Okay. I developed my PP work as CL, so I looked at the whole cohort of Year 11, low cost because it would do work that we would be doing anyway, but I wanted to make sure that we tried to get as many students where they needed to be as possible by doing very targeted things. So our aim was to secure the written coursework, which is worth 40% of their final grade, and the speaking and listening exam, which is worth 20% of their final grade, because that is the bit of the course we can control, or we have at least a certain amount of control over. And then obviously the 40% remaining is the exam, the written paper. The baseline that I used was from the end of Year 10, but obviously please bear in mind that they'd been working on their coursework and their speaking skills for a year prior to that. But my baseline was where are they at the end of Year 10 and how can we move them forward. Coursework progress and improvement work was done in lessons, in scheduled lesson time, with the whole cohort. And obviously then what we then did was targeted some dedicated after school sessions with individuals, and some of them were taken out of lessons by our HLTA, by Mrs Harrington, and various other members of staff who were either slightly under timetable or who were freed up, because our Year 12 cohort, most of them got their Cs in January, so we used first of all Mrs Keane and then Miss Ziegler to pick up some of those students. And we also used the CSC department to do quite a lot of work with our lower ability students on the speaking and listening to help build their confidence, so that they could go into that exam and perform well. We did early entry for one student because we thought that he was vulnerable, a student who was a LAC student as well as a PP student. So we did early entry for a number of vulnerable students. He was our one PP though. In terms of the outcome, out of the 35 students in the year group who were PP, we had 92% on or above target for their final internally moderated coursework, so that's 32 of them. Of the 3 who didn't make it, attendance was the biggest sort of mitigating factor as to why they didn't get it. Actually getting them out for those interventions, getting them into school after school was much trickier, and that was the main primary reason why they weren't able to be brought in. The boy who was early entered got his C first time round. He's now got a B coursework folder, and he got a B for his speaking and listening, so I'm really, really hoping that when the results come out, obviously in the summer he'll have performed equally well in the exam, but 60% means he should be over his C target, fingers crossed. Of the externally marked exam results, that's the examiner who comes in. The indication at the moment, obviously, again, has to be moderated by the board. We have to take that into account. 86% of the PP students were on or above their target, but 69% were above. And that is very much in keeping with their peer group. So obviously my next job will be, when the results come out, to look at how they performed alongside the rest of their peer group and whether or not we've got it right. But certainly previously, PP hasn't been it's not been hugely out of kilter for English, so we're just hoping to sustain and improve the current position, and certainly the stats at the moment suggest that that is the case. So hopefully, when the results come out in the summer, we will see that that cohort has performed well, and as I say, it's externally mitigating factors like attendance which seem to be the most affecting on where we are. But the strategies are things we would have done anyway, so it's low cost in the sense it hasn't cost us anything extra apart from freed up staff. So staffing issues. Obviously once we're all on target and timetable wise, that may be less able to be done, but certainly I'll now apply this to the year 10 cohort coming through, see where they are. We've altered things slightly because we've done a formalised speaking listening practice in year 10 this year, which we've never done previously. And we've built that time in, so they should be even better than the year 11 cohort, fingers crossed. Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Oh, right. So I'll keep this as brief as I can. My objective was to work with a group of Year 9 students from a range of different levels and backgrounds with regard to English. So their selection was basically based on teachers' responses to a survey sent out by Mr. Leaney at the time in September regarding their attitude towards the subject. So we chose to use a musician and stroke poet from London who's highly renowned and coming up in that field, and it gave us an opportunity to work with the students outside of classroom environment. So within that process, what we were able to achieve was more of a sort of 1-to-1, 1-to-3 smaller working groups, and also more opportunities to use talk and discussion as a stimulus to help them with their writing. Within that time frame that we had, we were able to meet over 5 sessions, which gave us the opportunity to take a writing process from start to finish, and in doing so we were able to take part in an area of English which I feel is really important for these boys, which is the editing stage, which is the final process which really helped to increase their writing skills and to make sure their work was to the highest standard possible. Within that process, as an outcome really, their leadership skills raised dramatically from a position where they're very shy. We had to do a lot of drama work in the first stages to get them to actually talk in front of one another, as it wasn't just the Feltham boys that we worked with, we also had a similar cohort from Bognor Regis as well. So we had 9 from us and 10 from the Regis. So they'd not met before. So as a result of this, it was a good opportunity for them to share ideas within that group format. Within that process, we were able to get the students to think about current affairs as well, which is really important, as this also informs how we improve our understanding of emotive and sympathetic writing skills. From the first point, we only had 33% that were actually on target, and we had even fewer that were well below. But from the outcome of this, we've now got 66% of students on target or above, and from their finished pieces, all 100% of the students that we had made their target grade or above. We also have, from that cohort, a number of students who are going to be doing private readings in sharing their work, which shows the confidence and leadership skills they've achieved or accomplished through this process, where they're going to take part in the private readings of their work. And additionally to that, they've also as well, through soft data, fed back to me about how it has helped them with their confidence in subjects where all of them felt that it actually helped them with their vocabulary. All of them said it helped them with their confidence in discussion, which is important in verbalising their words in order to help them with their writing skills. Additionally to this, they also felt that it gave them great confidence with their ability to understand how to critically mark their work and to identify how they can move forwards. And so those 3 key areas really were brilliant for us to see and for them to show. And they also will have some of their work in the Scribbler as well. So that's one thing they did. As an outcome of that, we gave them a book. As it was high cost, we had the opportunity to share many resources that we had, including other staff from the Regis. We were able to give them a book at the end as well, to say thank you and to take them on a further learning journey in the future, to remember the process by, and certificates, etc. So then we go on to phase 2, which was the year 7 one. With this one, slightly less contact time with the group in terms of workshopping. I took one workshop where it was superhero based for students who were working at high 3s in the classroom at that time. And so at that time when we started this process, we actually had all of the students working below target grade, and by the end we have 100% on target or above based on tracking point 4. So as a consequence, that has had high impact. Discussing with the group when I've had individual meetings with them, the reason for that progress is because they've been able to again see how to start a process of writing and finish it, and they're able to see the importance of the planning stage at the start. So that is the main outcomes from my 2 processes. That will be finished off with a parents coming in to share the work of the students, which will be taking place on Monday. So there we are. I'll move these things out of the way and I'll pass you on. Thank you.
Some pictures there, Steve.
Yes. I'll show you some pictures as well. There's some pictures there of myself. Yes, we were able to get this into the Bognor Regis Observer. There's another one that's being written up that's going in there as well, with the 2 groups next week. And there's also some of the work we did with the Year 7s as well, using the Media Centre, which was a really nice place to set it. So there we are.
Okay, so in media, I decided to look at something low cost, which was working on note-taking skills. The biggest issue we typically have with our Year 10s as they come into us is that it is a completely new subject. They haven't touched on it before, and so suddenly they're confronted with a lot of new terminology, and a lot of new skills being required. And one of the core components is note-taking. But that's not just note-taking in class, it's also note-taking under time constraints. So in the exam, they have half an hour to take detailed notes that will then allow them to answer their exam paper. Now for our higher ability students, this comes fairly naturally and they're able to gain very quickly, but for our pupil premium and SEN students, they tend to struggle. So I decided to try and tackle whether or not there was a way of actually making that easier for those students. And I actually chose a fairly simple way of doing it, which actually involved in class when we were doing practice exercises, I would be sat next to them in amongst their group with my own note paper and taking notes as they are. The idea being that towards the end of the exercise I was then able to stand up and say, okay, so we would go through their notes and I would then show them what I had done. The idea being that they could learn that there were certain shortcuts they could take in terms of taking notes. Notes are not marked in the exam in any way, shape or form. In fact, the exam board now requests we don't even bother sending them because it's extra weight, so they just want them gone. What this does mean is that their notes can take whatever form they like, whether or not it's stick figures, drawings, whatever works for them in terms of actually remembering the information they need. And while I realise that obviously good presentation and everything is a key part for us, sometimes under time constraints students would spend too much trying to make their notes look neat, then get the information down. So by me sitting there and doing it the same way and effectively showing them that I wasn't worried about neatness but how I got the information down, it started building the confidence of the students to take a risk and just go with what they felt they needed to do. This had some really positive impacts in year 11 in the mock exams and so on. Grades definitely started coming up and the students told me that they felt more confident by sitting down and writing their answers. One prime example is one of our students who targeted an E, was operating at an E level. By the time we finished doing these exercises and he sat his mock, he walked away with an A at the end of his exam. Now, we're hoping that's what he's also carried through to his actual exam, but I mean, he was definitely a lot more confident in terms of his grades and everything else. And the other year 11 students that faced similar ones were increasing by 1 or 2 grades as well in terms of their level of note. Our year 10, we've been doing the same sort of exercise, and again me taking notes alongside them and everything else, and it's work in progress. We definitely have a weaker cohort of year 10 in media this year round, but it is slowly but steadily going through. The recent mock exam we did, it would be fair to say a mixed result in terms of notes. Some detailed and some matching the sort of skills and things they needed, and some still struggling with that, but it is a case of us continuing to work on this and move forward. The idea being for general development in the future is that we actually want to create video resources and so on which show the note-taking process so they can use them at home as well as sort of as reference in class if they get stuck and so on. So very low cost exercise and sort of I would say for our year 11 positive results, year 10 is still ongoing. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, so you probably realise one of my hobbies is sailing. I spend a lot of time instructing people, and last year we took a lot of a cohort through, not from this group, but from this area who were needy children, and they really came on during that period of time. I was hoping to replicate that this year, but with various things, it's all moved back because every Wednesday's been like this. So the current course I'm running is now about 5 weeks behind times. But people think that inventor training is actually expensive. We can do this for virtually nothing through grants, and because the sailing club that I belong to gets a reduction in council tax effectively, as long as we seem to do various things on the way through, and using doing pupil premium stuff enables us to fund that so that students can go and do that for nothing. So I've identified about 12 kids, and I'm hoping to get minimum between 6 and 10 of them on a course over the summer holidays, and we'll take them out and give them round about 9 to 12 hours worth of training, so 2 days worth of training. And what we usually see when they've done that, and what we're seeing with the other group, is that they do gain confidence, because if they don't listen, they end up with a boat in the middle of nowhere, which they've got to sort out for themselves, and they usually manage it. And if they don't, I then have to jump in and help it. But 99% of the time when they're out there, they do manage it. So I'm hoping the people like Matthew White would really benefit from doing this sort of thing. We've had all sorts of people similar to Matthew go out and doing that type of thing, and when they're put in the situation where they have to solve it for themselves, they do, and then they gain confidence from it, and it all goes round and round in circles. So hopefully early August, late July, we'll have a group of them out there, and I'll be putting my hair out.
Outside of our TLC, what going on, and we became aware of this intervention in drama. Nick Coney's been doing some work with Chichester Festival Theatre, and she's targeted Year 9 Pupil Premium students, the ones that wanted to take drama in as an option in Year 10. And she managed to secure some funding which allowed them to go to some shows and some workshops at the Festival Theatre. The ones that were involved or wanted to be involved in lighting and the technical side of the theatre managed to have workshops in that, and they've had professional performers in to run some workshops as well. So again, it's high cost, but it's externally funded, so that, you know, funding has been attracted by the drama department to put that on. And she says the impact has been quite noticeable. The kids are engaged, behaviour is good, quality of their work has improved. And I think she feels that that particular intervention means that children who wouldn't have been able to go to the theatre perhaps have been able to do that. So it really gives them a life opportunity that perhaps they wouldn't have had, as well as an interest in work and the subject. So it's quite a significant impact for those students that's quite difficult to measure in school. So we tried to look at our last meeting at sort of general conclusions and, you know, where does it leave us, so what now? Mostly what we thought was that the combination of approaches seemed to be most effective, because different students need access to our attention and the benefits at, you know, at different times and different ways. So we quite liked the fact that it had been everything from sailing, you know, to marking to, you know, puzzle days, you know, quite a varied diet of intervention for Pupil Premium. We felt that there was no doubt that quality time invested in the children paid dividends, that feeling special was important, that something out of the ordinary was important. The feeling special, I think particularly, even if it's something you're running for other students, if Pupil Premium students can be invited specially, without saying your Pupil Premium, here's an invitation, but just covertly but invited specially, seemed to work. That seemed to give them access to things that they wouldn't normally just volunteer for. So if you're running a workshop or a revision session after school, just that special invitation got them along to things that they wouldn't perhaps have pitched up for otherwise. And we thought that was really important. And as I say, those special events, there's no doubt that they're important. So next steps, we have to think about what we can do within our budget constraints, and several of our projects took external funding. So Andy's sailing, who he's talked about, the FAB
project,
group, and Nick's work with Chichester Festival. We definitely need to go out there as a school and seek out ways to have intervention for our Pupil Premium students to continue this, because, you know, clearly the days of it being available through normal school funding are diminished. So we've got to be imaginative and really think about that. We need to use our in-house resources. So we started to talk about coaching and coaching by other students, and that's already going on in various places around the school, not necessarily with a Pupil Premium focus, but it so could be, you know. So I know there's been reading mentors, there's been maths mentors, you know, there's been all sorts of coaching, really, rather than mentoring, I should say, going on. Why not target that at the Pupil Premium students, again, by special invitation, and just raise that awareness of those strategies. The feeling is that a 2-year age group is the ultimate. So if you've got year 11s working with year 9s, or year 12 and 13 working with year 11s, then that seemed to have the most impact. And as Rachel mentioned, really reuse and recycle or upcycle what we've already done. So we've had the puzzle company in, but if we can spend some of our scarce resource of Pupil Premium money to invest in those activities, then we could run that. There's no doubt about it. It was really interesting to see. It was really interesting for us to see, because, you know, we often think of puzzles in maths. But there was no rocket science about things. But it was interesting to see how they did them, how they got that teamwork going. And we could do that. We could really easily do that if we can just get the investment in the materials and just value it as for what it is. So definitely reuse the ideas where there's been a lot of work done. You know, clearly Steve's put a lot of work into the two initiatives that he's been involved in, etc., etc. Let's reuse them, let's redo them, let's reinvent things that we already do for other students and do them for pupil premium students. And I think that's where we feel the way forward is. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions about what we've done or what we've heard. But if not, that's